Rumour has it that the walls of a chapel in Beni Hassan on the eastern bank of the River Nile are decorated with images of three people holding bags above their heads, thought to be the first ever example of strength training. Now, when you consider these paintings are thought to be around 4,000 years old, you begin to appreciate that conditioning our bodies to better perform daily tasks came a long time before the relatively nascent sports science industry that nurtures the elite athletes of today, and even before the military training used by armies to gain combat superiority in recent centuries. In truth, the reason strength training has been a platform of life itself through man's long history is it's vital to our very existence. For example, take a moment to try a little exercise with me. I'm going to ask you to stand up from your seat and now give me a little wave. Both of these incredibly basic but crucially important actions can only be performed if the requisite muscular strength is in place, both within your upper and lower body. Now, you can sit back down again, by the way, but as you do that, be aware of the work taking place in your quadriceps, hamstrings, buttocks, abdominals, and lower back. My name is Dean Hodgkin, and in this short series, my aim is to take you on a journey through the amazing history of resistance exercise, from the days depicted on that chapel wall, to investigate the many exciting forms of strength training that now exist, how our bodies respond to such, and how they can seriously impact our quality of life in so many different ways. I'll also give you 3 exclusive workouts to show you how strength training can be adapted to ensure you reach your health and fitness goals, whatever they may be. Now, you could argue that strength training is perhaps the most essential of all life forces, and I hope you'll agree when you discover the many interesting, sometimes startling, but always highly useful information we'll uncover in this series, The Essentials of Strength Training. Now, in my 30 years of working in the health, fitness, and sports domains, I've often found that strength training is misunderstood. The lines between weight training, weightlifting, powerlifting, and bodybuilding can be considerably blurred. Maybe this is something that's even caused you confusion. Now, whilst training for competition is very similar for bodybuilders and weightlifters, the two are really very different sports. Bodybuilding is a non-Olympic event that's purely focused on aesthetics. Weightlifting, by contrast, is a popular feature of the Olympic Games that pushes competitors to the edge of their capability. It involves just 2 lifts: the snatch, where the weight is lifted from the floor directly overhead and then the legs straightened, and the clean and jerk, where the weight is lifted first to the chest and then pushed overhead. Weightlifting actually appeared in the first Olympic Games in 1896, and logically, participants are split into strata according to their body weight, with 8 categories for men and 7 for women. Amazingly, the world records for the combined total lifted for both of those 2 techniques we mentioned is a colossal 472 kilograms for men and an equally impressive 328 kilograms for women. Now, don't worry, because we're not going to be lifting anywhere near that much in our workouts. And I'm actually going to help you to identify the weights that are right for you to use to work out effectively and safely. The relatively smaller sport of powerlifting first appeared in the mid-1960s and features participants competing again in different weight categories, but this time in 3 regular gym exercises, namely the bench press, the squat, and the deadlift. As in weightlifting, the sport is centered on testing competitors' strength, but these exercises require much less skill than the 2 Olympic lifts we mentioned earlier. Delving into the history of many cultures will reveal some form of sport and almost certainly tests of strength, but perhaps the most well-known of these are the Celtic Highland Games, dating back to the days of King Malcolm III in the 11th century. Since events on the schedule of this annual gathering that's still very popular to this day include the caber toss, the stone put, the weight throw, both in distance and height, and the Scottish hammer, then clearly strength is very much the focus of this sporty gathering. Now, to compete at a decent level in any of these aforementioned sports, it's going to take some serious preparation, and a wide range of resistance training equipment is used. The good news here is that many of these items have been modified for today's regular exerciser. So you have the choice of a whole plethora of tools to bring strength gains, muscle toning, and a number of other benefits, as we'll discover in our next lesson. So let's take a look at some of the inventive training tools that are available to you. The medicine ball has been around for an incredibly long time, with the first reference to wrestlers training with sand-filled bladders appearing in Persia around 3,000 years ago. Even the father of modern medicine himself, Hippocrates, had them sewn out of animal skins and stuffed with sand, challenging his patients to throw them back and forth for injury prevention and rehabilitation. Now, I've brought in some new equipment and we've changed the area slightly, so let's take a look at the exciting other equipment you can use. Firstly, the kettlebell. Now, kettlebells are not new. In fact, their origins date back to military training in Russia in the early 18th century. The unique design with the inverted U-shaped handle allows for swinging moves and working with momentum to stimulate a different neuromuscular response than your body experiences with other resistance tools. Training with a kettlebell is founded on multi-joint movements through different planes to create truly functional routines. The barbell can vary in length anywhere from 1.2 meters, that's 4 feet, to 2.4 meters or 8 feet. Weighted plates are placed equally onto either end of the bar and fixed with collars to prevent them slipping off if the bar is not horizontal and could cause injury. Gyms will commonly feature both this and also a range of fixed weight barbells that are not adjustable. In addition, an Easy EZ barbell is a zigzag shape that's designed specifically to allow different hand grips to reduce the stress on the wrists when performing exercises for the biceps and the triceps. The dumbbell, as mentioned earlier, is the direct descendant of the halter used by the ancient Greeks. Like the barbell, comes in both fixed and variable weight versions, but allows for many more exercises than the barbell, most notably the option to perform unilateral exercises that can help address strength imbalances that's a precursor to injury issues. It's thought the term is derived from the equipment used by bell ringers wishing to practice their technique in quiet, hence the dumb prefix. A very useful development in terms of home exercise equipment is the invention of selectorized dumbbells, whereby turning a dial or sliding a pin while the dumbbell is resting on its stand will result in a changing number of plates being lifted when you pick it up. This is particularly beneficial in the home, as you will need heavier weight for leg exercises and for arm exercises, but it removes the need to purchase several pairs of dumbbells. Resistance tubes, or resistance bands, were designed in Switzerland in 1895, firstly as a piece of gymnastic equipment that was highly portable and space economic. Although it wasn't really until the 1960s that these were used regularly, most notably in the physical therapy domain. By the early 80s, the booming fitness industry capitalized on the versatility of resistance bands, and with many manufacturers springing up, they were soon seen in most gyms and many homes worldwide. Manufacturing rubber tubing, rubber bands of different thicknesses, produces a scale of resistance, characterized by different colors, although sadly, these colors are not standardized across suppliers, so it's important to assess suitability for your own use on an individual basis. The Viper is a heavy-duty rubber item resembling a sort of short, hollow log. It comes in different weights to suit your ability, and it's now a must in most commercial gyms. It's also perfect for home use, and it's an incredibly versatile tool, lends itself to many traditional, functional, and sport-specific exercises. And interestingly, the name Viper is an acronym of Vitality, Performance, and Reconditioning. Suspension training systems were first conceived by a US Navy SEAL when trying to think of ways to stay in shape when on maneuvers with something that could be carried around easily and a kit bag was light enough to carry. These can be found in most gyms and are also ideal for home use, and they work by hooking two straps over a high point and then hanging in various positions, either facing this way or that way, and pulling yourself up against gravity. Gym machines can either be just a frame onto which you load weighted plates, or what is known as a stack system, whereby plates sitting on top of one another are already within the machine and you select the amount of weight for an exercise by shifting the pin up or down the stack. For many years, these were referred to as constant resistance, but this implied that at certain points within the range of motion, it felt easier than others. For example, on the bicep curl. The introduction of cams over which cables were fed enabled the resistance to vary through the movement to match the strength curve, and so ensure that the target muscle was being optimally challenged at all times, so leading to better results. Hydraulic and air machines work by compressing fluid or air in a chamber, so producing resistance against the movement that increases commensurate with the speed of movement. Since these machines don't incorporate industrial-looking metal plates, they're much preferred by a considerable percentage of both female and senior population subsets, and so have become the choice for leading worldwide fitness franchise Curves, now with gyms in over 85 countries. Electromagnetic machines, again, have the benefit of not relying on a stack of weight plates, plus allow for dual positive movement, which has been proven to reduce muscle soreness. Unfortunately, however, this means the exercises are not truly functional, so could actually lead to injury risk when performing other types of activity. In addition to which, they're very expensive items, which perhaps explains why they're not found in many commercial fitness facilities. Finally, vibration plates. They don't provide a resistance, but they're commonly used to enhance the effects of body weight resistance exercises such as squats and press-ups. And although they were originally developed by NASA to overcome the dramatic muscle mass and bone mineral density loss experienced by astronauts during prolonged periods in space, this same technology has been incorporated into commercial and domestic machines that promise to speed your results. So, really, with such a wide menu of equipment to choose from for the gym, home, and outdoor environments, there's no excuse for strength training ever becoming boring. Hopefully, then, there's something here that's got you inspired to get started or to spice up your current dusty routine. So, now it's time to examine some of the benefits you can expect to see. Certainly you're already aware that as a result of strength training, changes will occur in your muscles, and we'll indeed investigate these in detail in the next lesson in this series. But I'd like to take a moment now to look specifically at some of the lesser known impacts upon your health and well-being. In the US, it's estimated 140 million visits to the doctor are related to back problems, costing around $18 billion. Obviously then, anything that can help to reduce this burden will be welcome news. And a study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research established that strength training produced measurable improvements in pain, disability, and quality of life. Now, interestingly, a control group who performed only cardiovascular exercises noted a parallel reduction in body fat levels and an improvement in flexibility, but didn't report any significant change in back pain sensation. On a similar note, research in Denmark that was published in the journal Arthritis and Rheumatism revealed that strength training can reduce neck pain, the second most common musculoskeletal malady after back pain. A 10-week dynamic strength workout program was devised, requiring 3 20-minute sessions per week, performing 5 dumbbell exercises to target the trapezius muscle. Specifically, the exercises chosen to treat this condition were a single arm row, a lateral raise, the shrug, reverse fly, and the upright row. This led to an incredible 79% reduction in pain symptoms and 29% increase in shoulder strength for the participants when compared to those in the control group. With diabetes on the rise in many countries and the potential for it to lead to a range of medical complications that include kidney disease, eye problems, cardiovascular disease, and nerve issues, I want to take a look at this condition specifically. The good news is that in 2009, a study recorded in the Australian Journal of Physiotherapy showed that strength training enhances control of blood sugar levels and so positively affects these conditions. It was thought originally that cardio exercise was the only option to help tackle diabetes, but this research sets the record straight by establishing that resistance training is a positive intervention. To explain this, let's first consider how the body controls blood sugar levels. After food intake, insulin is released by the pancreas to shunt the glucose into the skeletal muscle, where it's stored as energy in the form of glycogen, also to the liver for long-term storage, and into the adipose tissue. Sorry, that means some of it immediately becomes body fat. Once stored in the liver, glucose is drip-fed into the bloodstream as required by the body's energy demands. Diabetes is a result of a deficiency in this process, leading to higher than normal levels of glucose in the bloodstream. But a progressive strength training program was shown to lower the value of glycosylated hemoglobin, a key measure of the average blood glucose concentration over a prolonged period. Encouragingly, the researchers concluded that strength training is effective in both managing the condition and indeed preventing it in the first place. Guidelines for workouts are very simple. 1 to 3 sets of exercises that focus on major muscle groups at around 50 to 80% of your 1 repetition maximum, which is the maximum weight you can lift just once with perfect form for any given exercise. Another plus point for strength training on a health front was revealed in a study published on the website www.cancer.org that showed resistance training twice per week for 6 months significantly enhanced the quality of life for women who had been treated for breast cancer. The researchers noted improvements in both physical and psychosocial aspects, concluding that changes in strength and body composition led to greater feelings of empowerment. Clearly, this effect upon breast cancer survivors highlights the potential for strength training to impact mental health, although this is a much less studied area than the physical domain. One notable piece of research published in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine in 2010, however, revealed some incredibly valuable and far-reaching facts regarding the impact of specific exercise upon many different aspects of well-being. Firstly, with around 15% of Americans suffering with regular anxiety issues, it's comforting to learn that resistance training can significantly reduce the symptoms. It's also worth a mention here, perhaps contrary to logic, that more isn't necessarily better, with moderate intensity workouts proving to be more beneficial than high intensity versions. Anxiety may be linked to depression, the intense feelings of sadness that can lead to pronounced negative mood swings, maybe also disturbance to sleep patterns, tiredness, deep apathy, and even weight fluctuations. Whilst there are conflicting studies on this topic, with a recent study at the University of Exeter published in the British Medical Journal suggesting exercise made no difference to symptoms, advocates will point to specific research with clinically depressed patients that recorded clearly positive results. Like the processor in a portable computer, our brains are able to gather information, store it, and then recall it when needed, something known as cognitive function, which is of particular importance as we age, since there appears to be a general decline with advancing years. The good news is that in older adults, strength training can improve a number of cognition markers, most notably in the area of memory and performing daily tasks that are related to memory. Another aspect of mental health is self-esteem, which my dictionary defines as the belief and confidence in one's own ability and value. Once again, resistance training has been shown to bring positive change, this time in both younger and older population subsets, whether suffering depression or indeed of healthy mind. To summarize, here's a full menu of the benefits of strength training in the area of mental health. Improved memory, reduced risk of depression, less chronic fatigue, improved sleep quality, enhanced cognitive ability, lower anxiety, and improved self-esteem. Quite a shopping list, I'm sure you'll agree. I'd like to go off at a tangent here. Firstly, to address a common myth regarding strength training, and then to investigate this topic in a little more detail. I'm referring to the misguided notion that once you stop training, the muscles you've gained will then turn to fat. Now, trust me, in over 30 years in the sports, fitness and health industries, I've lost count of the number of times I've encountered this being used as an excuse to avoid subscribing to regular resistance training programs. Sadly, it's more usually been female and older clients who've held this belief. Precisely the two groups who, due primarily to osteoporosis risk, are at most in need of strength exercise. The truth is that when taken to extremes, a bodybuilder or elite athlete will commit so much time and effort to training that there'll be a concomitant increase in energy requirements, i.e., he or she will need to eat more. As a habit, exercise is broken more easily than eating behaviors, and so when training stops, the feeding usually continues. The result then is a visual illusion, whereby muscles that are no longer being exercised begin to shrink, but the excess food that is being eaten and not expended during training is laid down as body fat, giving the external impression that muscles could be turning to fat. In passing, we've touched on a really important issue here, however. The awareness that we lose muscle as we age. This is what the exercise physiologists refer to as sarcopenia, thought to begin sometime after 30 years of age, leading to a loss of between 3 and 5% of muscle mass per decade, and accelerating significantly after 75 years of age. Unsurprisingly, this loss of muscle mass is accompanied by a parallel loss of strength. The causes of this concerning physical change that can lead to reduced capacity to accommodate everyday tasks and also difficulties with weight management are thought to be a combination of the following factors. Decreased hormone levels, particularly the growth hormone and testosterone, which play a role in protein metabolism within the muscle cells, leading to a decrease in muscle mass. Reduced protein synthesis impairs the body's anabolic ability, i.e. the function of growing or regenerating new muscle tissue. Motor unit remodeling refers to the change in the nerve cells that initiate movement, known as motor neurons, that die with age, resulting in the specific muscle fibers they serve becoming inactive, so they atrophy or shrink, and so lose the capacity to generate force. And then lifestyle change, specifically lower activity levels linked to advancing years, will clearly lead to less opportunity for the muscles to be overloaded, which is vital to retain their functional potential. Fear not, however, because as you may have guessed, resistance training has been shown to positively affect all of these factors. The biggest gains are made in protein synthesis, which has been shown to improve measurably in as little as 2 weeks, and also in improved efficiency of the motor units, leading to increased muscle fiber recruitment and therefore greater production. Guidelines are 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions with a load that results in a mild fatigue over 8 to 10 exercises. Ideally, these should target the whole body and be performed 2 times per week with a 48-hour rest between each. More specifically, we need to focus on correct technique, ideally with an instructor on your first couple of sessions to observe. Work through your full, comfortable range of motion. Never hold your breath, and begin with 6 to 8 weeks training with a light resistance to get used to the movement patterns and to allow the connective tissues to become gradually accustomed to handling increasing loads. And so because of that, we need to avoid maximal lifts, e.g. strength tests, particularly if you have a history of musculoskeletal pathology. Opt for standing rather than seated exercises to promote additional functional gains in balance and coordination. And finally, a look at the current obsession with retaining youth that exists within many cultures today. Statistics show that in 2011, Americans had 14 million cosmetic surgery procedures at a cost of $10 billion, with Botox injections, breast augmentation and hair transplants leading the charts, all of which are arguably motivated by the aspiration to be like the Greek goddess Hebe, daughter of Zeus, cupbearer to the gods on Mount Olympus, and with a name that literally translates as flower of youth. So, where am I going with this? Well, quite simply, resistance training is one of the most powerful tools at your disposal to delay, and yes, I'm going to say it, to actually reverse the aging process. Getting old is, sadly, usually accompanied by a loss of muscle mass and strength, leading to reduced everyday capability, as mentioned earlier. It's even estimated that debilitating muscle loss in the older population actually costs the US healthcare system around $20 billion each year. Research in 2009, however, identified 179 genes associated with aging and showed that strength training can result in a reversal of their gene expression. This measure was shown to be similar in older subjects to the younger control group. So not only does resistance training slow the process of aging, it can actually reverse it. To quantify the benefit, strength in the older group was around 59% lower than their youthful counterparts. But after a period of resistance training, this differential dropped to 38%. I find this quite comforting. Maybe it's the control freak in me, but knowing that I can decide to commit to a regular, progressive strength training program, and it will result in improvements to my muscles' longevity profile at a molecular level, feels pretty empowering to me. Perhaps strength training truly is the elixir of life. I, for one, am willing to test that theory. I hope that by now, you're convinced to do the same.